We did it. We made it. Finally, it's the regular season. It's here. Yay! It's about time. I'm Andrew Nordmeyer, the host of Cardinals Uncovered, and today we're going to take a look at some of the storylines ending training camp and look ahead to the Week 1 game between the Cardinals and the Buffalo Bills. So glad to have you here, and we're glad to finally have regular season football games that count. So let's start by taking a look at the depth chart and going from there. There we go. All right. So on the offensive side of the ball, no real surprises over here. You've got Marvin Harrison is one of your wide receivers. Dortch and Michael Wilson is expected. And when you look at it, the only real surprise here is that you've got as your swing tackle Kelvin Beachum, which he's definitely got the skill to play both sides there. But otherwise, there's no other swing player on that. Evan Brown wound up winning the battle at left guard with Isaiah Adams, the third-round pick, coming in second, which is not too bad. Tristan Colon is going to wind up backing up Will Hernandez on the right side, but Colon, I believe, also played the left side last season too. So we're going to have a lot of potential versatility there in the offensive line, which is always a good thing. Cardinals wound up keeping 4 tight ends, with Trey McBride obviously being the number 1. Elijah Higgins, the 2, Ryman, the 3, and Travis Vokalek, the 4th one. Running back also a 4-deep position with James Conner, the starters you expect. Trey Benson, Emery DeMarcado, who's more of a third down specialist, and DJ Dallas, who is expected to be the main returner for the Cardinals, although it could also possibly be Greg Dortch, depending on the situation. And we'll just have to see how that plays out starting with tomorrow. Defensive side of the ball, again, very few surprises there. You've got Bilal Nichols, the free agent acquisition there as a defensive tackle. Justin Jones, another one at defensive tackle. Gardeck, Kaiser White, basically being the man on defense, the quarterback of the defense. Mack Wilson Sr., who came over from New England in the offseason. Zaven Collins is, again, solid start there. Murphy Bunting was a free agent. And again, the real strength on this is its safety with Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker. We don't go past too deep on any of this except for the outside linebacker position where Jesse Luketa is going to be the third one on the depth chart, and it's probably going to have more of a special teams kind of role. The one player who I'm really looking at here that I liked last season that I'm really happy that he got a starting shot is right here at outside linebacker and Dennis Gardeck. On the opposite side of Zaven Collins, Gardeck is the kind of guy who he always hustles. He puts in the effort. He always goes out there and is not afraid to just absolutely smash somebody. He quickly became one of my favorite players last season, and I hope he continues to grow and improve this season. I would also say then that when you look at that depth chart, you also have to realize the Cardinals made a few roster moves to get down to 53. So they put first-round pick defensive end Darius Robinson on IR with a calf issue. Offensive lineman Christian Jones, Carter O'Donnell, and cornerback Elijah Jones are also on the IR to start the season. Don't forget B.J. Ojulari is there as well, but he's out for the entire season with a torn ACL. So there's some bumps and bruises to deal with there as the Cardinals will be a little short to start the season, and we might see some moves getting made in roughly 4 to 5 weeks. And speaking of 5 weeks, Zay Jones is also serving the first of his 5-game suspension for violating league's conduct policy this week when the Cardinals take on Buffalo. And one final thing before we exit out of the training camp phase of this, that man there is Sugar Sean O'Malley, for those of you who maybe aren't UFC fans. He is the current bantamweight champion. He's also a resident of Glendale, of all places. So local guy swinging over to say hi at training camp. He actually came over to visit with the team before his upcoming title defense in Las Vegas, which is next weekend. O'Malley is 18-2 in MMA with 12 wins by knockout. And it's just kind of a fun surprise to see him hanging out there with the team, just having some fun. Tried to push at one point Will Hernandez on a blocking sled and did not get very far. But when Will Hernandez pushed him on the blocking sled, that thing took off, and I think it's still going somewhere near Gilbert. O'Malley defends his title September 14th in the Sphere in Las Vegas. So hopefully a little bit of good sugar there can sweeten the way the Cardinals perform this week. As you see there, Kyler Murray holding his replica UFC title belt, which Sugar Sean signed for him there. So never know who's going to show up at a Cardinals practice. You never know. Now, speaking of Buffalo, that's who they're playing this week. Buffalo's a weird place for the Cardinals, and it's a weird place for a number of other reasons. We'll talk about this image on the screen here in just a minute. Okay, the Arizona Cardinals have never won in Buffalo. The St. Louis Cardinals won there once in 1971, the first ever meeting between these two franchises. In a game there on Halloween of 2004, future Hall of Famer Larry Fitzgerald had one rush for 4 yards. He had 5 targets. He had 0 catches. That was during his rookie year, and it was the only game he was active for which he did not record a single catch. So again, Buffalo's kind of weird, but as we can talk about here, though, they've got great wings and wild fans. How wild? This wild. Now, I've seen a couple documentaries on the Bills fans. They call themselves the Bills Mafia. I don't know how they came up with that, but it seems to work. And nobody else in the NFL calls their fan base the Mafia. Okay. When they tailgate, they do it a little bit differently up there. I actually saw where a guy was cooking a roast in a filing cabinet. They were doing bacon in a mailbox that they had a heating source attached to. They're certainly not afraid to make nearly anything you can think of at a tailgate. And then that man right there, that is a software engineer from Buffalo who goes by the nickname of Pinto Ron. Now, Pinto Ron has been to every single home game in Buffalo for the last 30 years, dating back to 1994. And you see he's covered there in ketchup and mustard. And this is a big cultural thing up there in Buffalo, where the story behind it is that one day at a tailgate, a couple of guys got really bored. So instead of just putting their condiments on their hamburger, they would like grab their little ketchup bottle, like squirt it, just so, they go bloop like that to try and get, to the burger or the bun. Well, this man wound up running and taking off with it metaphorically. And now the whole ketchup and mustard thing is his thing alone. And people will actually, as you see there, gather around, they'll film it, they'll record it just to see this guy standing there with a hamburger bun in one hand, a hamburger in the other, saying, "Can I get some ketchup and mustard, please?" And he just absolutely gets waylasted in condiments. But only those two. No relish, no tomatoes, no onions, just ketchup and mustard, and Pinto Ron getting covered pretty much from the waist up. So you can tell they're a little crazy up there. And then you've also got the other fun thing when you talk about Buffalo, and that's breaking tables. Now, the woman you see in the middle of this video, in the middle of this picture, was apparently recently married. This is from a couple years ago. The guy whose feet you see on that car is her husband. Yes, that man literally put his newlywed wife through a folding table in Buffalo. I'll let you take a moment and think that over. But that's what they do up there. They go through tables in all sorts of ways. Sometimes I've seen them light the tables on fire and put people through them. And it's obviously not just men, it's women too. I've seen them jump off the top of porta potties and go through tables. Understandably, I realize Cardinals fans, we would never do anything like this, but it's rather dangerous. I get that, the culture up there kind of supports it, but man, that is some wild stuff that they do up there in Buffalo. Like I said, I mean, great sports town, really good fans up there. And I just don't know what else it is about what's in the wing sauce in Buffalo that just makes those people absolutely that crazy. But you do have to give it up for them. They are a pretty passionate fan base, and they always support their team. I mean, last year they won the AFC East at 11-6, but ran into Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, and, well, we know how that ends. So, Buffalo. It's a fun word to say. It's a fun wing to eat. And God forbid you're wearing the opponent's colors up there. You might get thrown through a table. So let's talk about this week 1 matchup between the Cardinals and the Bills. Last time these two teams got together was back in 2020 during the COVID year. And as you remember, that was the game that had the Hail Murray on it from Kyler Murray to DeAndre Hopkins in triple coverage to win the game. You see there Micah Hyde's in there on coverage trying to stop it, and really nobody could. DeAndre Hopkins comes down with that, and that play will probably get replayed during Sunday's broadcast at least 2 or 3 times, just because it's that amazing of a catch with Murray rolling out to his left and firing into triple coverage and still getting it caught. So that was the last time that those two teams met. The last time it was in Buffalo, Cardinals haven't been there since 2016. They lost 33-18 to the Bills when LaShawn McCoy ran for 110 yards and 2 scores in the win. And again, the previous meeting was 2020, like we had just shown you there. So it is definitely time for football. Try and get this going here. Again, Buffalo won the AFC East 11-6, beat the Steelers in the wild card round before falling short against Kansas City in the divisional round, 27-24, when Tyler Bass's field goal went just a bit to the right. And it was Buffalo's third straight loss in that round of the playoffs, and the third time in 4 years the Chiefs sent them home. Cardinals coming off a 4-13 season, which had some struggles. Obviously, Kyler Murray wasn't there for the first half of the year recovering from his ACL. But as you can imagine, it's going to be different now with Murray being back and healthy, Marvin Harrison Jr. being in the fray. It's going to be a lot more fun. So let's talk about some of the keys to winning this game, and that's one of them that you see right there, and that's Buffalo quarterback Josh Allen getting wrapped up by a Cardinal defender. And that's the number one key that we've got for this game, is that we know Josh Allen, all 6'5", 240 him, is going to run the ball. There's going to be designed runs for him. The Cardinals in the preseason did not really do a good job getting a whole lot of pressure on quarterbacks, especially in that first game against New Orleans. So the question is, can the Cardinals pass rush find a way to get home in this one? If Josh Allen breaks containment, he is not afraid to take off and go running. And if you pressure Josh Allen too much, he'll start to throw the ball downfield and force it, and that's when he starts making turnovers. It's usually those 40, 50-yard passes that he just tries to throw out there. Well, they used to be to Stephon Diggs, but he's in Houston now, so maybe it'll be a different Buffalo wide receiver this year. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir maybe. Curtis Samuel's up there too. You don't know which one it'll be, but either way, if you put the pressure on Josh Allen, keep him in the pocket, and force him to throw, especially downfield, he can be prone to turnovers. I've had him on fantasy teams. It's enough to drive me nuts, but it does happen. So big thing the Cardinals have to do is they have to get the pass rush and find ways to get either Allen in containment or get him down on the ground to really, help out with the chances to win here. Arizona also needs to establish the run early on here to keep Josh Allen standing on the sidelines. Remember, the Cardinals were a top 5 rushing team last year, and they used that to keep opposing offenses standing on the sidelines. And another thing to do is they need to silence the fans early. We just talked about those fans. They're crazy. They're rabid. They're cooking roast and file cabinets. They're hungry, literally. And with it being their first game there since the playoff loss to Kansas City, they want to see their team succeed. So don't be surprised if the crowd noise starts causing problems with the Cardinals, especially in the first quarter. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of false starts get called solely just because of the noise. So, the Cardinals also really have to step it up on defense in general too. Last year, they were 31st in the NFL last year in completion percentage, allowing 68.6% of passes thrown to be completed. And they're also tied 28th in average rushing yards allowed per attempt at 4.7, so they didn't really stop anything. Almost dead last in the league in points allowed at 26.8. And the prospects so far aren't really that much brighter. Like I mentioned earlier, B.J. Ojulari's out with a torn ACL. Darius Robinson's going to be out for at least the first 4 games. Cardinals are kind of suspect at cornerback too. Sean Murphy-Bunting back there being your top option. Max Melton, the second-round pick, is a second-string cornerback right now who might see the field in maybe a nickel package, maybe a dime package. We'll see how they roll out on Sunday. Basically, what it means here is that Josh Allen could have a lot of opportunities in the passing game against this Arizona defense unless they really have done something while flying between here and Western New York to really stiffen the whole product up. On the Buffalo side, they need to take advantage of the Arizona rush defense, which has not been great for a couple of seasons now. James Cook, paging James Cook, please pick up a white courtesy football because it's going to be potentially a good James Cook day. Josh Allen himself will probably wind up getting 9 or 10 carries, maybe 40, 50 yards on the ground. I won't be surprised when that happens. Buffalo also needs to take advantage of Dalton Kincaid and to a lesser extent Dawson Knox, the tight ends on the team, because Arizona has been chronically unable to cover tight ends for the last few years. You look back at the stats that some of the other tight ends have put up against this team, and as you can tell, they usually peak pretty nicely when they're playing the bird game. On the injury front, the only noteworthy injury for the Cardinals is wide receiver Xavier Weaver, who's out with an oblique injury. Buffalo's without defensive end Javon Solomon, who's also out with an oblique issue. So there's your question. Does the pressure come in against Josh Allen? It better. As you see here, Cardinals are going to be wearing all white on Sunday. White helmet, white jersey, white pants, white socks, white gloves, white everything. It's going to be one of the 8 times this year that the Cardinals will be wearing a solid all-white look this season. They're going to have 6 games in all red and 3 games in all black. There are no games this season where Arizona will mix things up with, say, a red jersey and white pants, or maybe a black jersey and red pants, which actually could look pretty spiffy. But no, it's all going to be solid colors all year long. Red uniform, white uniform, black uniform. And that's it. So fashion-wise, not terribly impressive, but, no one asked my opinion on these things. So on that note, since it is getting close to game day, let's go gambling a little bit and talk about some of the possible wagers you could make on this game. Let me tell you right now here that before I dive into this, gamble responsibly. Only wager what you can afford to lose. If you happen to tail some of my picks and win, that's great. If you tail and lose, I bear no responsibility for your losses. All information provided for entertainment purposes only. All right, so as of right now, the consensus is that Buffalo is about a 6.5-point favorite on Sunday. The over-under is at 47, and the money line shows Buffalo around minus 290, and Arizona is a plus 240 for this game. I think this comes out as a 31-14 Bills win, so I'd place my wagers as follows. Buffalo covers the spread, and you can tease it out closer to 9.5, even 10 points. I just don't think the Cardinals' offense is going to click on all cylinders in the first week. May need another week or two before it really starts rocking and rolling there. I also think that the Arizona run defense isn't quite going to do enough to slow the ground game down, and I can see Buffalo really taking off and getting out ahead early and not letting up on this one. Taking the under on this one, since Arizona's offense doesn't support this being a shootout, it'll be close to the over-under number, but I'm still going under. It may end up being, say, 44 or 45 total points, so a whisper under the 47 that I just mentioned. If you're looking for prop bets, Josh Allen anytime touchdown score is going to be a favorite of mine. I think rookie wide receiver Keon Coleman, who's been put out there as more than 2.5 receptions, I think he's going to start off pretty nice with about 4 or 5 catches on Sunday. So I would definitely take that one. Another one is Cardinals running back James Conner with more than 1.5 receptions. With the way he's involved in the passing game, that almost feels like just stealing candy from a baby. But you know what? Wins are wins. I'd also feel comfortable adding in more Josh Allen props over 7.5 rushing attempts and 32.5 rushing yards in this game. For Arizona, beyond Connor, they just need to show what they have in Marvin Harrison Jr. before I start putting them in prop bets. At this point, use the established players and established facts and trends for prop bets early in the season, because you don't know if they're going to wind up, if a rookie is going to wind up, going for 20 yards or 200 yards. You have no way to tell. I think back to like Cam Newton's first 2 games in the NFL, the quarterback. And his first 2 games, he was more than 415 yards in both of them. If I remember, it was about 3 touchdowns combined, 4 interceptions combined, and 0 wins combined. So you never know what you're going to get out of the rookies. Give them a little bit of time, unless it's a simpler thing like receptions with Coleman, like I mentioned a moment ago. Otherwise, kind of back off of them, lay low a little bit, and see what happens. From a fantasy standpoint, I'm starting Josh Allen, James Cook, who should be actively involved, like I said, Dalton Kincaid, Coleman, and maybe Tyler Bass, the place kicker, if I'm looking for what should be some decently reliable points. Um, on the Cardinals side, Connor is the one I would start because I really think with the way he runs with the ball, the way he gets involved in the passing game, I expect him to get a lot of work as the Cardinals try and chew down the clock. Tyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. are decent options. So is Trey McBride. But the Arizona passing attack could be a little limited if Buffalo gets up early and they start trying to milk the clock, as I expect that they will. It's just going to be fewer opportunities, possibly more desperation passes, especially in the second half, if this game goes according to the way I have it kind of scripted out in my head. So that's what I would consider doing for this week for fantasy, for wagers, all that good stuff. And I think that, again, do it responsibly, but like I said, wait on the rookies for a couple weeks, see what happens, and go from there. Finally, this afternoon, we'll talk about this guy right here. As you probably know, this is Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills. A couple years ago, you did not know who he was until that fateful night in Cincinnati when he tried to tackle a Bengal on a running play and wound up taking that hit to the chest at exactly the right millisecond, and basically his heart stopped on the field. Damar Hamlin will be the starting safety this Sunday in Buffalo. It's great to see that he is healthy enough to A, have a normal life, B, participate in football, and that C, he's got enough, confidence in himself and the training staff to actually get back on the field after what could have been, which actually was a nearly fatal event in his life. So it'll be good to see him back out there. I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have, but it's nice to see that his story is finally coming full circle as we get towards the first week of the regular season. So it's fantastic to see that happen. So up next for us, late on Sunday, we'll recap the Cardinals outing in Buffalo, and we'll start looking ahead to next week's home opener against Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams. It's part of a 3-game homestand that has the Rams, the Detroit Lions, who are going to be a really good team this year, and the Washington Commanders. We don't know what to make of them quite yet. But either way, it's finally here. It's finally back. It's the one road trip, so it gives the Cardinals a chance to maybe do a little bit of bonding before they go out and take on the Bills. And hopefully, just like my bank account, they defeat the Bills this week too. But for now, that's going to do it for us. We are looking forward to providing coverage multiple times a week during the season. And we will talk to you again Sunday after the game. And let's see what happens to the Cardinals when they shuffle off to Buffalo.